You've probably heard of microplastics. They're tiny pieces of plastic, no bigger than a grain of sand, and somehow, they're making their way into our food, our drinks, and even our bodies. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but this is real. Right now, you might be eating, drinking, or even breathing in these particles without realizing it. So what exactly are microplastics? Simply put, they're plastic fragments smaller than 5 millimeters. That's about the width of a pencil eraser. Some are even smaller, down to nanoplastics, which are invisible to the naked eye. And here's the thing, they're everywhere. They don't just show up randomly. Most microplastics come from everyday products: plastic water bottles, food containers, plastic bags, even the synthetic fibers in your clothes. Over time, these plastics break down, but they don't vanish. They just become smaller and smaller, until they're microscopic. Once they reach that size, they slip into our environment, into the soil, the water, the air, and eventually, into our bodies. Studies have already found microplastics in table salt, seafood, bottled water, even in the bloodstreams and lungs of humans. And perhaps most alarming, they've been discovered in the placentas of unborn babies. This isn't just a pollution issue, it's personal. It's about what we put into our bodies every day. In this video, we're going to explore the surprising ways microplastics sneak into your meals, the potential health risks they carry, and, most importantly, the practical steps you can take to reduce your exposure without turning your life upside down. Ready to get started? Let's talk about how these tiny plastic particles end up in our food. There are 4 main pathways, and some of them might really surprise you. First, plastic packaging. So much of our food today is wrapped in plastic, from snacks and frozen meals to meat, cheese, and even fresh produce. Over time, that packaging can shed microscopic plastic fibers. Heat, sunlight, or even just storage time can cause these plastics to break down. That means if you microwave food in plastic, drink from plastic bottles, or use single-use containers often, you're increasing your exposure to microplastics without even knowing it. Second, water contamination. You might think bottled water is safer, but ironically, bottled water is one of the worst offenders. Studies have found thousands of microplastic particles per liter in many bottled water brands. Tap water isn't perfect either, but when filtered properly, it tends to contain far fewer particles than bottled water. Third, the food chain itself. Fish and seafood absorb microplastics directly from the water they live in, especially shellfish like mussels and oysters. They filter huge amounts of water every day, and whatever's in that water ends up in their bodies. When we eat them, we're also eating what they've absorbed, microplastics included. Fourth, airborne microplastics. Yes, plastic particles can float in the air as dust. Indoors they come from carpets, furniture, plastic packaging, and synthetic clothing. These airborne particles can settle on your food, especially if you leave it uncovered, or they can be inhaled while you cook and eat. So even when you think you're eating healthy, microplastics might still be on your plate, or in your glass without any obvious signs. But the big question is, do they actually harm our health? Let's take a look at what the science says. Now, let's talk about the health side of things. Microplastics are inside our bodies. That much we know. Scientists have found them in human blood, lungs, and even in placentas of unborn babies. But what does that actually mean for our health? Honestly, the research is still catching up. But here's what we do know, and it's enough to take seriously. First, cellular damage. Studies have shown that microplastics can trigger oxidative stress and inflammation at the cellular level. These are the kinds of biological responses we also see in chronic diseases like diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. While that doesn't prove microplastics cause those illnesses, it does suggest they could play a role in the bigger picture of long-term health. Second, hormonal disruption. Many types of plastic contain chemicals known as endocrine disruptors. These substances can mimic or interfere with your body's natural hormones, which control everything from metabolism and reproduction to mood and growth. Over time, exposure to these chemicals may contribute to fertility problems, developmental issues, or even metabolic disorders. Third, heart and blood vessel risks. This one is newer, and pretty alarming. A 2024 study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that patients with carotid artery plaques containing microplastics had a higher risk of heart attack, stroke, or even death compared to those whose plaques did not contain plastics. That suggests microplastics might not just be floating around harmlessly, they could be embedding themselves in our tissues and contributing to serious disease. Fourth, effects on kidneys. Since the kidneys are responsible for filtering waste from the blood, it makes sense to ask whether they're affected by So far, most of the research here comes from animal studies, which show signs of kidney inflammation and elevated blood pressure. We still don't have enough human data to draw firm conclusions, but it's definitely an area to watch. So, where does that leave us? We can't avoid microplastics entirely, they're everywhere. But with the potential risks becoming clearer, reducing exposure is a smart move, especially when we're talking about organs as critical as the heart, the kidneys, and the reproductive system. In the next part, we'll dive into the 5 everyday foods that contain the most microplastics and how you can swap them for cleaner, safer alternatives. Let's break down the 5 biggest sources of microplastics in our diet. These are everyday foods and drinks that many of us consume without even thinking twice. But after today, you'll know what to look out for, and better yet, what to choose instead. 1. Bottled water. This one tops the list. Studies have found that bottled water can contain thousands of microplastic particles per liter. That's right, every sip might be delivering invisible plastic to your body. Better alternative? Filtered tap water. Use a high-quality home filter and store your water in a stainless steel or glass bottle. Not only is it better for your health, but it's cheaper and more eco-friendly in the long run. 2. Sea salt. Yes, something as simple as salt can carry a plastic load. Because our oceans are polluted with plastic waste, sea salt absorbs microplastics during the evaporation process. Every sprinkle might be seasoning your food with tiny plastic particles. Better alternative? Rock salt or Himalayan salt, depending on where it's sourced, may contain fewer microplastics. And here's a bonus tip. Cut back on salt overall. It's better for your blood pressure, your kidneys, and now, your microplastic intake. 2. 3. Shellfish and farmed fish. Shellfish like mussels and oysters are filter feeders, which means they naturally accumulate microplastics from the water they live in. Farmed fish like salmon and tilapia may also be exposed to plastics through their feed. Better alternative? This one's tricky. There's no easy answer yet because nearly all seafood is affected to some extent. Until we have more information, it's wise to rotate your protein sources. Add in more plant-based proteins or responsibly sourced meat from land-based animals when possible. 4. Processed and packaged foods. Anything that's wrapped in plastic, chips, cookies, frozen meals, can be a hidden source of microplastics. During storage and transportation, tiny particles can shed from the packaging and end up in the food. Better alternative? Whole foods stored in glass or stainless steel containers. Whenever possible, cook at home using fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Yes, it takes more time and effort, but even small steps like switching your lunchbox to glass or reducing microwave use in plastic can make a difference. 5. Plastic tea bags. Believe it or not, some tea bags, especially the fancy pyramid-shaped ones, are made with nylon or PET plastic. When steeped in hot water, they release billions of microplastic particles into your cup. Better alternative? Loose leaf tea with a stainless steel or ceramic infuser, or look for brands that use biodegradable plastic-free tea bags. They're better for you and better for the environment. Up next, practical tips to cut back on microplastics in your daily life. Beyond just food choices, how to reduce microplastic exposure in your daily life. So now that we know where microplastics come from and the foods they might be hiding in, let's talk about practical, everyday steps you can take to reduce your exposure. Number 1. Use a high-quality water filter. Filtering your tap water can significantly cut down your intake of microplastics, especially if you live in an area with older pipes or a less than ideal water system. Look for filters that are tested for microplastic removals. Some advanced carbon or reverse osmosis systems are designed for this purpose. Number 2. Avoid heating food in plastic containers. When plastic is heated, whether in the microwave, dishwasher, or even in direct sunlight, it can release more microplastic particles and harmful chemicals into your food. Instead, reheat and store your food in glass, stainless steel, or ceramic containers. It's a simple habit shift that makes a big difference over time. Number 3. Switch to natural fiber clothing. Synthetic fabrics like polyester, nylon, and acrylic shed microplastics during every wash. These particles make their way into our water systems and eventually into the food chain. Try choosing clothes made from cotton, hemp, or other natural fibers when possible. And when you do wash synthetic clothes, consider using a filter bag or laundry ball designed to catch Number 4. Use air purifiers and vacuum with HEPA filters. Yes, microplastics are even in household dust. They can come from upholstery, flooring, clothes, and more. Using an air purifier and regularly vacuuming with a HEPA filter, vacuum helps reduce the amount of these particles in the air you breathe and the surfaces where your food is prepared or eaten. Number 5. Choose sustainable packaging. Try to buy foods that come in glass jars, cardboard boxes, or metal cans instead of plastic containers and wrappers. Bring your own reusable bags and containers when shopping or dining out. Each small decision helps reduce your personal exposure and sends a signal to companies that people care about reducing plastic use. Final thoughts. Should we panic about microplastics? No, absolutely not. The goal of this video is not to scare you, but to raise awareness. Microplastics are everywhere. That's the truth. But instead of feeling helpless, we can choose to be informed, intentional, and proactive. We may not yet have all the answers about exactly how microplastics affect human health, but the early evidence gives us enough reason to start making small, manageable changes in our daily lives. Things like drinking filtered water, cooking more at home, cutting down on packaged and processed foods, and choosing glass over plastic. These are steps we can all take, starting today. And remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about being better, little by little. You don't have to overhaul your entire lifestyle overnight. Just pick one change to start with, then add another. Over time, those choices will add up. So, what are you going to change first? Is it switching to a reusable water bottle? Trying loose leaf tea? Replacing plastic containers in your kitchen? Whatever it is, know that you're doing something positive for your health and for the planet too. Thanks for being here and for caring about what goes into your body. Stay curious, stay kind to yourself, and keep learning. Your health is worth it.